The night sky, once a canvas of twinkling stars, now harbored a sinister presence. In the year 2050, humanity's peaceful existence was shattered by the sudden appearance of the Zeltharian Armada. Like a dark storm cloud looming on the horizon, their ships descended upon Earth with a ferocity unmatched by any force mankind had ever faced. Captain Sarah Reynolds stood on the bridge of the USS Redemption, her eyes fixed on the swirling chaos beyond the safety of her vessel. The hum of the ship's engines reverberated through the metal floor beneath her feet, a steady reminder of the gravity of their situation. "Status report," Captain Reynolds commanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil raging outside. Lieutenant Jackson, her second-in-command, approached with a grim expression etched upon his face. "The Zeltharians have breached our outer defenses," he reported, his voice tinged with urgency. "Their ships are advancing at an alarming rate. We won't be able to hold them off much longer." Captain Reynolds clenched her jaw, her mind racing with the weight of their predicament. The fate of humanity rested on her shoulders, and failure was not an option. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," she ordered, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "We'll buy Earth as much time as we can." As the USS Redemption plunged into the fray, the void of space erupted into a symphony of chaos and destruction. Blasts of energy lit up the darkness, illuminating the battlefield with an otherworldly glow. The Zeltharian ships, sleek and menacing, moved with an unnatural grace as they closed in on their human adversaries. Captain Reynolds watched with a mix of determination and dread as the battle unfolded before her. Each explosion, each loss of life, served as a harsh reminder of the stakes they faced. But amidst the chaos, there was a flicker of hope, a glimmer of defiance in the face of overwhelming odds. "We will not go quietly into the night," Captain Reynolds vowed, her voice echoing with unwavering resolve. "We will fight, and we will prevail. For Earth, for humanity." With those words ringing in their ears, the crew of the USS Redemption plunged headfirst into the heart of the storm, ready to defy fate and forge their own destiny in the fires of battle. The stars above flickered like distant candles in the black canvas of space, their light casting an eerie glow upon the silent void. Amidst this celestial tapestry, Earth hung like a jewel, its surface marred by the scars of war. The human fleet, a ragtag assembly of ships, braced itself for the onslaught that loomed on the horizon. Captain Sarah Reynolds stood upon the bridge of her flagship, the USS Valiant, her eyes fixed upon the vast expanse of space before her. She could feel the tension in the air, a palpable weight that hung heavy upon the shoulders of every crew member aboard her vessel. Despite the odds stacked against them, she refused to yield to despair, her resolve as unyielding as the steel that surrounded her. "Status report," she commanded, her voice steady and commanding. A young ensign at the communications console turned to face her, his expression grim. "Enemy fleet inbound, Captain. Estimated time to engagement 5 minutes. Captain Reynolds nodded, her jaw set in determination. "All hands battle stations. Prepare for incoming enemy fire." The ship hummed with activity as crew members rushed to their stations, their movements swift and purposeful. The air crackled with anticipation, a tangible energy that seemed to pulse with the rhythm of their hearts. Outside the viewport, the stars began to blur as the Zeltharian Armada emerged from the darkness of space, their sleek vessels bristling with weapons. Like a swarm of angry hornets, they descended upon the human fleet with ruthless precision, their intentions clear. Total annihilation. The first volley of plasma fire tore through the void, streaking towards the human ships like fiery comets. Captain Reynolds gritted her teeth as the USS Valiant shuddered under the impact, her hands gripping the railing of the command console with white-knuckled intensity. "All ships return fire!" she barked, her voice cutting through the chaos of battle. The human fleet responded with a barrage of missiles and laser fire, their weapons lighting up the darkness like a symphony of destruction. Explosions blossomed in the void as Zeltharian ships were torn apart by the ferocity of the human counterattack, their screams lost amidst the cacophony of battle. But for every enemy vessel destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place, their numbers seemingly endless. Captain Reynolds watched with a sinking heart as the human fleet was slowly pushed back, their defenses crumbling under the relentless assault of the Zeltharians. "We can't hold out much longer," muttered Commander Jackson, her second in command, his brow furrowed with worry. Captain Reynolds clenched her fists, her eyes blazing with determination. "We'll hold out as long as we can," she vowed, her voice ringing with defiance. "For Earth. For humanity." And with that, she plunged back into the fray, her ship leading the charge against the encroaching darkness. Though the odds may have been stacked against them, she refused to surrender to despair. For as long as there was breath in her lungs and fire in her heart, she would fight on, determined to defend her home against the tide of war that threatened to consume them all. The void of space echoed with the thunderous roar of warships clashing, a symphony of destruction that reverberated through the cosmos. Within the confines of the Zeltharian flagship, Admiral Zorak stood upon the bridge, his gaze fixed upon the swirling chaos of battle displayed on the viewscreen before him, his claws clenched tightly around the armrests of his command chair, the hard chitin of his exoskeleton gleaming in the dim light of the bridge. Around him, his crew worked with frantic efficiency, carrying out his orders with unwavering obedience. But beneath the facade of confidence, doubt gnawed at the edges of Zorak's mind like a relentless predator. As the battle raged on, Zorak watched in grim silence as his forces unleashed wave after wave of devastation upon the human fleet. Each volley of energy weapons and plasma torpedoes brought death and destruction to their enemies, but it also weighed heavily upon his conscience. Was this truly the path to glory and conquest that he had envisioned for his people? Was the subjugation of a lesser race worth the cost in lives and suffering? These questions lingered in the depths of Zorak's soul, festering like an open wound that refused to heal. His thoughts turned to his own upbringing, to the teachings of the Zeltharian elders who had instilled in him from a young age the virtues of strength, honor, and dominance. But now, as he witnessed the carnage unfolding before him, he found himself questioning the wisdom of their ways. Was it truly honorable to wage war against those who posed no threat to his people? Was strength measured only by the ability to crush one's enemies beneath the weight of overwhelming force? These questions haunted Zorak, casting doubt upon the righteousness of his cause. Yet despite his inner turmoil, Zorak knew that he could not show weakness in front of his subordinates. To do so would be to invite dissent and rebellion within the ranks of his fleet, a risk that he could ill afford to take in the midst of battle. With a heavy heart, Zorak pushed aside his doubts and reaffirmed his commitment to the Zeltharian cause. Whatever misgivings he may have harbored, he knew that he could not falter in his duty to his people. The fate of the Empire rested upon his shoulders, and he would see it through to the bitter end, whatever the cost. In the midst of the chaotic battlefield, where flashes of energy and explosions painted the vast expanse of space, Captain Sarah Reynolds stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Liberty, her eyes fixed on the holographic display before her. Her heart pounded with a mixture of determination and desperation as she weighed her options. The Zeltharian armada loomed ominously on the horizon, their colossal ships casting shadows over Earth's defenders. Amidst the clamor of battle, a flicker of hope emerged, a transmission from an unexpected source. Dr. Lyra, a Zeltharian scientist disillusioned by the senseless violence of war, reached out to Captain Reynolds with vital information that could turn the tide of the battle. As the holographic image of Dr. Lyra materialized before her, Captain Reynolds felt a surge of cautious optimism. "Captain Reynolds, I come to you as a messenger of peace." Dr. Lyra's voice echoed through the bridge, her image flickering with static. "I have vital intelligence regarding a weakness in the Zeltharian fleet. With your skill and courage, I believe you can exploit this vulnerability and secure victory for your people." Captain Reynolds listened intently, her mind racing with the possibilities. The information Dr. Lyra provided was like a beacon of light in the darkness, offering a glimmer of hope amidst the chaos of war. With renewed determination, Captain Reynolds formulated a daring plan to launch a surprise assault on the unsuspecting Zeltharians. "Dr. Lyra, your bravery in reaching out to us has not gone unnoticed," Captain Reynolds replied, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We will do everything in our power to seize this opportunity and bring an end to the bloodshed." As the transmission ended and Dr. Lyra's image dissipated, Captain Reynolds turned to her crew with a newfound sense of purpose. With the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, they prepared to embark on a mission that would test their courage and resolve like never before. The hours that followed were a whirlwind of activity as the crew of the USS Liberty mobilized for battle. Every officer and enlisted member worked tirelessly to prepare their ship for the coming confrontation, knowing that the fate of Earth depended on their success. Amidst the chaos of the preparations, Captain Reynolds remained resolute, her mind focused on the task at hand. Finally, as the last preparations were made and the human fleet assembled for the assault, Captain Reynolds stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond. The moment of truth had arrived. With Dr. Lyra's intelligence guiding their actions, they would launch a daring strike against the heart of the Seltharian Armada, hoping against hope that it would be enough to tip the scales in their favor. As the human fleet surged forward into the depths of space, Captain Reynolds felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The battle ahead would be fierce and unforgiving, but with the knowledge that they fought for a just cause and the support of allies both old and new, she knew that victory was within their grasp. With determination burning in her eyes, Captain Reynolds gave the order to engage, and the USS Liberty led the charge into the heart of the storm. The cold expanse of space echoed with the thunderous roar of cannons and the fiery dance of laser beams as the human fleet plunged headlong into the heart of the Seltharian Armada. Captain Sarah Reynolds stood at the helm of her flagship, the Valkyrie *. Her eyes ablaze with determination as she led her forces into the fray. The Zeltharian ships loomed like colossal titans, their sleek forms bristling with weapons and shields. But Captain Reynolds knew that their strength lay in their numbers, not their skill. With Dr. Lyra's intelligence guiding them, she had a plan to exploit the chink in the Seltharian armor and turn the tide of the battle in humanity's favor. As the two fleets clashed in a maelstrom of fire and fury, the Valkyrie * weaved and dodged through the chaos, her crew working with precision and determination. The Zeltharian ships, caught off guard by the suddenness and ferocity of the human assault, scrambled to respond, their formations breaking apart in confusion. But Captain Reynolds pressed the attack, her voice ringing out over the din as she rallied her crew to greater feats of bravery. The Valkyrie * unleashed a devastating barrage of missiles and plasma bolts, striking true against the exposed flanks of the Seltharian vessels. Explosions blossomed like deadly flowers in the void, as enemy ships were torn apart by the onslaught. Amidst the chaos, Admiral Zorak watched with growing unease from the bridge of his flagship. His once unshakable confidence wavered as he witnessed the devastation wrought by the human counterattack. The Zeltharian fleet, so sure of their victory just moments before, now found themselves on the back foot, their lines crumbling under the relentless assault. But even as doubt gnawed at his heart, Admiral Zorak refused to yield. With a fierce roar, he rallied his forces and launched a desperate counteroffensive, determined to regain the upper hand and crush the human resistance once and for all. The battle raged on, each passing moment fraught with peril and uncertainty. But amidst the chaos and carnage, a glimmer of hope emerged, a beacon of light in the darkness. For Captain Reynolds and her crew, this was not just a battle for survival, but a chance to reclaim their future from the clutches of tyranny and oppression. And as the Valkyrie * and her allies pressed ever onwards, they knew that victory was within their grasp. With courage in their hearts and fire in their souls, they fought on, their spirits unbroken and their resolve unwavering. For they were not just fighting for themselves, but for all of humanity, for the hope of a brighter tomorrow, and the promise of redemption among the stars. As the dust settles from the latest skirmish, Captain Sarah Reynolds finds herself standing on the bridge of her ship, the UES Unity, gazing out at the stars that have become both her battleground and her sanctuary. The flickering lights of distant galaxies serve as a stark reminder of the vastness of the universe and the fragile nature of peace. Across the void of space, aboard the imposing Seltharian flagship, Admiral Zorak paces restlessly in his command chamber, his mind consumed by thoughts of conquest and conflict. The weight of his decisions hangs heavy upon him, like chains forged from the sins of his past. At long last, a message crackles to life on the communications console, breaking the silence that has enveloped the void between their ships. Captain Reynolds steps forward, her expression resolute yet tinged with a hint of apprehension as she prepares to face her adversary once more. "Admiral Zorak," she begins, her voice steady despite the tumultuous emotions swirling within her. "It is time we put an end to this senseless bloodshed. We are not so different, you and I. We both seek to protect our people to ensure their survival in a hostile universe." Admiral Zorak regards her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, his piercing gaze betraying the inner turmoil that threatens to consume him. "And yet, Captain Reynolds, your kind has proven to be a formidable obstacle to our expansion. How can we trust that you truly seek peace, and not merely a temporary reprieve from our wrath?" Captain Reynolds meets his gaze with unwavering resolve, her words ringing with sincerity and conviction. "Actions speak louder than words, Admiral. Let us cease hostilities and open a dialogue. Together we can find a path forward that benefits both our peoples. But we must be willing to set aside our grievances and embrace the possibility of a better future." For a long moment, silence reigns between them, punctuated only by the soft hum of the ship's systems and the distant echo of distant explosions. Then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, Admiral Zorak nods, his expression softened by a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. "Very well, Captain Reynolds," he replies, his voice tinged with a newfound sense of determination. "Let us meet face to face and discuss the terms of our ceasefire. Perhaps there is hope for peace yet, in this vast and unforgiving universe." With that, the communication ends, leaving Captain Reynolds and Admiral Zorak to contemplate the fragile truce that hangs between them like a delicate thread. As they prepare to embark on the next chapter of their journey, they know that the road ahead will be fraught with peril and uncertainty. But for the first time in a long time, they dare to believe that there may be light at the end of the tunnel, and that together they can forge a new path towards a brighter future among the stars. The bridge of the Zeltharian flagship pulsed with a frenetic energy as Admiral Zorak surveyed the holographic displays flickering before him. His brow furrowed in concern as reports streamed in from across the fleet, detailing the escalating tensions among the ranks. "Weapon systems at 60% capacity," announced a Zeltharian officer, their voice tinged with urgency. "But morale is plummeting. We must act swiftly if we are to maintain control." Admiral Zorak clenched his fists, grappling with the weight of his decision. For years, he had led the charge against humanity, driven by a fervent belief in the superiority of his people and the inevitability of their conquest. But now, as the consequences of his actions bore down upon him, doubt gnawed at his resolve. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the bridge as reports of a mutiny echoed from the lower decks. Admiral Zorak's heart sank as he realized the depth of the betrayal within his own ranks. He knew that the hardline zealots, fueled by their fanatic devotion to the Zeltharian cause, would stop at nothing to see their vision of domination realized. "Sound the alarm! Seal off the mutiny!" he commanded, his voice ringing with authority. But even as his orders echoed through the corridors, he knew that the situation had spiraled beyond his control. With a heavy heart, Admiral Zorak strode from the bridge, his mind racing with the weight of his decision. He knew that he stood at a crossroads, torn between loyalty to his people and the flickering spark of empathy that had ignited within him in the face of Captain Reynolds' unwavering determination. As he made his way through the labyrinthine corridors of the flagship, Admiral Zorak's thoughts turned to the future. Could there be a path forward that did not lead to further bloodshed and destruction? Could he find redemption for the sins of his past? Or was he doomed to be forever defined by the choices that had brought him to this precipice? At last, he reached the heart of the mutiny, where the hardline zealots had gathered, their eyes ablaze with fervor as they prepared to strike a decisive blow against their enemies. But as Admiral Zorak confronted them, a quiet resolve settled over him, tempered by the knowledge that he could no longer stand idly by and watch his people descend into madness. "Enough," he declared, his voice ringing with authority. "This madness ends here. We are not savages to be consumed by our own lust for power. We are Zeltharians, and we are better than this." His words hung in the air, a challenge to those who would seek to tear apart the fragile fabric of their society. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the soft hum of the ship's systems. And then, slowly but surely, the zealots began to lower their weapons, their resolve wavering in the face of Admiral Zorak's unwavering conviction. As the tension ebbed away, Admiral Zorak knew that the path ahead would not be easy. There would be challenges and hardships, trials that would test the limits of their newfound alliance. But in that moment, as he stood amidst the wreckage of his shattered beliefs, he knew that he had taken the first step towards redemption. And with Captain Reynolds by his side, he was determined to see it through to the end. The dust of battle settled, leaving behind a landscape scarred by the remnants of war. Captain Sarah Reynolds stood on the bridge of her flagship, the USS Unity, gazing out at the wreckage that once littered the vast expanse of space. Her eyes, weary yet resolute, reflected the weight of the decisions that had brought humanity to this moment of reckoning. Across the void, on the bridge of the Zeltharian flagship, Admiral Zorak surveyed the aftermath of the conflict with a mixture of sorrow and determination. The once mighty armada now lay in ruins, a testament to the folly of unchecked ambition and the price of blind allegiance. As the echoes of battle faded, a tentative silence descended upon the cosmos, broken only by the soft hum of engines and the distant murmurs of the crew. It was a moment of pause, a chance to reflect on the devastation wrought by centuries of mistrust and conflict. But amidst the ruins, there flickered a spark of hope, a glimmer of possibility that beckoned to those willing to embrace it. Captain Reynolds knew that the road to peace would be long and fraught with peril, but she also knew that it was a journey worth undertaking. With a steady hand and a steady heart, she reached out across the void, extending an olive branch to her former adversaries. Her message was simple yet profound, a call for unity in the face of adversity, a plea for understanding in the midst of chaos. Across the divide, Admiral Zorak received her transmission with a mixture of surprise and skepticism. For centuries, his people had viewed humanity as nothing more than a nuisance to be eradicated. But now, faced with the consequences of their actions, he could not help but wonder if there was another way. In the days that followed, tentative negotiations began, each side cautiously feeling out the boundaries of trust and cooperation. There were moments of tension and mistrust, of anger and resentment, but there were also moments of empathy and understanding, small glimpses of the humanity that lay buried beneath the veneer of war. Slowly but surely, the seeds of peace took root, nourished by the collective desire for a better future. Captain Reynolds and Admiral Zorak, once bitter enemies, found themselves standing on common ground, united by a shared vision of reconciliation and redemption. Together, they forged a path forward, laying the groundwork for a new era of cooperation between humanity and the Zeltharians. It was a daunting task, fraught with uncertainty and doubt, but they faced it with courage and determination, knowing that the future of both civilizations hung in the balance. As the stars began to fade into the darkness of space, a sense of hope began to stir within the hearts of those who had borne witness to the horrors of war. It was a hope born of sacrifice and perseverance, of courage and compassion, a hope that, against all odds, a brighter tomorrow awaited, waiting to be discovered among the ashes of the past. In the aftermath of the conflict, Earth's sky shimmered with the hues of dawn, a promise of renewal after the darkness of war. Among the ruins of once proud cities, amidst the debris of shattered ships and broken dreams, stood Captain Sarah Reynolds and Admiral Zorak, their figures silhouetted against the rising sun. The air crackled with tension, heavy with the weight of uncertainty and possibility. For months, they had been enemies, locked in a deadly dance of destruction. But now, as they surveyed the devastation wrought by their conflict, a new understanding dawned between them. "We've come a long way," Captain Reynolds said, her voice quiet but resolute. Admiral Zorak nodded, his gaze lingering on the ruins of Earth's once thriving metropolises. "Indeed, Captain, but our journey is far from over." Together they turned towards the horizon, where the first tendrils of light were banishing the shadows of night. In that moment, they saw not just the scars of war, but the potential for a brighter future. "We have much work ahead of us," Captain Reynolds said, her voice tinged with determination. "Rebuilding what was lost, forging new alliances, and bridging the divide between our peoples." Admiral Zorak inclined his head in agreement. "It will not be easy. There will be challenges, obstacles, and setbacks along the way. But if we stand united, if we face them together, I believe we can overcome anything." As they spoke, a sense of hope blossomed in their hearts, a flickering flame amidst the ashes of destruction. For the first time in years, they dared to envision a world where humanity and the Zeltharians stood not as enemies, but as allies and friends. And so, as the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its golden light upon the scarred landscape below, Captain Reynolds and Admiral Zorak made a silent vow. They would not rest until their vision became reality, until peace and prosperity flourished once more among the stars. Hand in hand, they stepped forward into the dawn of a new era, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. For in that moment they knew that as long as they stood united, nothing could stand in their way.